The Sahara does not forgive mistakes. It is not simply a desert. It is a vast, living wilderness, a shifting, breathless expanse of sand and stone that has tested travelers for thousands of years. Temperatures rise beyond what the human body is meant to endure. Winds erase footprints within minutes. And those who lose their way rarely return. In April 1994, this merciless landscape became the arena for what many consider the toughest footrace on Earth, the Marathon des Sables. 6 days. 140 miles. Temperatures exceeding 120 degrees Fahrenheit. No external support. Every runner carrying their own food, water, and survival gear across one of the most hostile environments on the planet. Among them stood Mauro Prosperi, a 39-year-old Italian police officer and experienced pentathlete. Disciplined. Fit. Meticulously prepared. He had trained for months, studied the course, and believed he understood the risks. For the first 3 days, Prosperi performed as expected. He maintained his pace, followed the course markers, and endured the punishing heat. But on the 4th day, the desert revealed its true power. As runners crossed an exposed stretch of open dunes, a sandstorm rolled in without warning. What began as a distant haze quickly became a blinding wall of dust. The sky turned brown. The wind roared. Visibility dropped to almost zero. Some runners stopped. Others crouched low. Prosperi pressed forward. Within minutes, the storm erased everything, the flags, the footprints, the horizon itself. When the wind finally eased, the world reappeared, but nothing was familiar. No markers. No runners. No checkpoint. Just endless dunes in every direction. At first, Prosperi assumed he was slightly off course. He kept walking, believing he would eventually reconnect with the race route. But as the sun set, a terrifying realization set in. He had seen no checkpoint all day. Night in the Sahara brought a brutal chill. He wrapped himself in his emergency blanket and tried to rest, but sleep was impossible. His mind raced with one question: how far had he wandered? At dawn, he moved again. His supplies were limited, a few energy gels, some protein bars, and enough water for maybe 2 days if he rationed carefully. But in the Sahara, rationing is an illusion. Every step drains the body. Every breath steals moisture. By the 2nd day, the truth was undeniable. He was not just lost. He was profoundly lost. There were no landmarks. No variation in the landscape. Just sand, rock, and an oppressive sky. He climbed the highest dunes, searching for any sign of civilization, a road, a village, even another runner. There was nothing. On the 3rd day, his water ran out. In that moment, alone beneath a merciless sun, Prosperi understood the gravity of his situation. Search teams would be looking, but the Sahara spans nearly 4 million square miles. Finding one man in that immensity would be nearly impossible. He made a grim decision. He would keep moving, conserve his energy, seek shade when he could, and when thirst became unbearable. He began drinking his own urine. Not out of madness. Out of survival. The taste was bitter. The smell overwhelming. But it was liquid, and in the desert, liquid is life. By the 4th day, the heat became almost unimaginable. Temperatures climbed beyond 130 degrees Fahrenheit. His skin blistered. His lips split open and bled. His head throbbed. His vision blurred. His body, desperate to conserve water, began shutting down its own functions. He could barely urinate at all, a sign that his kidneys were failing. Then, he saw movement in the rocks. A small snake. With his last bit of strength, Prosperi killed it. There was no fire. No water. No way to cook it. He tore into the raw flesh and forced himself to swallow. It was not a meal. It was fuel. On the 5th day, as he staggered through the shimmering heat, something appeared on the horizon. A structure. At first, he believed it was a mirage. The desert is famous for creating false lakes, floating buildings, and vanishing trees. But this shape did not disappear. Step by step, it grew clearer. Walls. A roof. A doorway. It was a marabout, an abandoned Islamic shrine once used by travelers. Cracked, crumbling, but real. And most importantly, it offered shade. Prosperi stumbled inside and collapsed. For hours, he lay on the dirt floor, letting his body cool in the dim light. As his eyes adjusted, he noticed movement above him. Bats. Dozens of them hung from the wooden beams. In any other situation, he might have felt fear or disgust. But now, he felt nothing. They were food. He waited until they settled, then reached up, grabbed one, and bit into it raw. He repeated this whenever he had the strength. For 2 days, he sheltered inside the shrine, sleeping in short, desperate intervals, eating bats to stay alive, and avoiding the deadly sun. But he knew the truth. The shrine was not salvation. It was a dead end. There was no water. No rescue. Staying meant dying slowly. On the 7th day, in utter despair, Prosperi took out his small knife. He cut both wrists. But his body, ravaged by dehydration, betrayed him once more. His blood was too thick. Instead of flowing freely, it oozed slowly, almost gelatinous. His veins had collapsed. His circulation was failing. He did not die. Exhausted, he lay on the floor of the shrine and passed out. When he woke the next morning, sunlight streamed through the doorway. He was still alive. His wrists had clotted. His body, stubborn and unyielding, had refused to let him die. There was no relief, only emptiness. Slowly, he forced himself to stand. He knew one thing for certain: if he stayed, he would die. So he stepped back into the Sahara. He moved with agonizing slowness, conserving every ounce of energy. His body had lost nearly 40 pounds. His face was gaunt. His eyes sunken. His organs were beginning to fail. On the 8th day, something changed. In the sand, he saw tracks, human footprints. Nearby, animal droppings. Signs of life. A fragile thread of hope appeared. He followed them. The landscape shifted slightly, fewer dunes, more rocks, small shrubs clinging stubbornly to life. On the 9th day, he saw them. Figures on the horizon. A Tuareg nomadic family, traveling with their goats. He tried to call out, but his voice was gone. He waved his arms weakly and staggered toward them. They saw him. They approached slowly, recognizing a man on the brink of death. When they reached him, Prosperi collapsed. They gave him water, only small sips. Too much too fast could kill him. Then goat milk, gentle nourishment his body could handle. They brought him to their camp and laid him in shade. The next morning, they transported him to a small Algerian military outpost. Only then did Prosperi learn the truth: he had unknowingly crossed from Morocco into Algeria. He was about 180 miles from where he had become lost. Within hours, a rescue helicopter arrived. He was airlifted to a hospital. Doctors were stunned he was alive. His kidneys were failing. His liver severely damaged. He had lost 33 pounds in just 9 days. Medical staff carefully rehydrated him and stabilized his body over several days. Meanwhile in Italy, his wife received the news. Days earlier, she had been told he was missing, and likely dead. Now, she learned he had been found alive. Prosperi eventually recovered physically, but he never again ran the marathon des Sables. The psychological scars ran deeper. He rarely spoke about the moment he tried to end his life. When he did, he spoke calmly, almost detached. He did not see himself as a hero. He described survival as a combination of preparation, biology, and sheer luck. He returned to his job as a police officer. He continued running, but never again in the desert. The Marathon des Sables continued. Other runners got lost. Most were found within hours. A few took longer. None endured 9 days like Prosperi. His disappearance changed the race forever. Organizers introduced mandatory GPS tracking. Checkpoints were placed closer together. Satellite monitoring became standard. The desert was still dangerous, but no longer left to chance. From a scientific perspective, Prosperi's survival pushed the limits of what was believed possible. Most people die within 3 to 5 days without water in desert conditions. Prosperi lasted 9. Drinking urine, minimizing movement during peak heat, and years of endurance training created a narrow, fragile window of survival, but luck played a massive role. If the Tuareg family had taken a different route, he would have died. If the shrine had not existed, he might not have lasted as long. If his blood had flowed freely when he cut his wrists, he would not have woken. The margin between life and death was razor thin. Prosperi never wrote a book. He never chased fame. He gave interviews when asked, nothing more. When asked if he regretted entering the race, he said no. When asked if he would do it again, he also said no. He had learned what he needed to learn. Today, his story is studied in survival training programs and medical research on extreme dehydration. It is told among ultramarathon runners as both inspiration and warning. But Prosperi himself never romanticized it. He survived, not because of destiny, but because of a fragile mix of preparation, biology, and chance. The Sahara remains what it has always been. Vast. Beautiful. Indifferent. And somewhere in Algeria, an abandoned shrine still stands, silent and empty, a place where a man once chose to live after trying to die.